Ariadne's thread. Myth, meaning, and a labyrinth of life. In the ancient world, myths were not just stories, they were mirrors. Mirrors of who we are, of our fears, our hopes, and the struggles hidden deep within the human soul. And few myths capture this better than the story of Theseus, Ariadne, and the Minotaur. A tale of love, betrayal, monsters, and the thread that might just lead us out of life's darkest labyrinths. But before we enter the maze, before we face the beast, we must begin with the curse that gave birth to it. The curse of Minos and Amp, the birth of the Minotaur. Long ago, the island of Crete was ruled by King Minos. Proud, ambitious, eager to prove himself chosen by the gods. He prayed to Poseidon, god of the sea, to send him a magnificent bull as a sign of divine favor. Poseidon answered. From the waves emerged a beast of pure white, shining with divine power. Minos should have sacrificed it back to the god, but he did not. He kept it for himself. And when kings defy the gods, punishment always follows. Poseidon cursed Minos's wife, Pasiphae, with a desire both unnatural and irresistible. From that union of woman and beast came the creature they called the Minotaur. Half man, half bull, a being that should not exist. Horrified, Minos sought to hide his shame. He turned to the master craftsman, Daedalus, who built for him a prison unlike any other, the Labyrinth. A maze of endless passages, winding corridors, and dead ends that twisted upon themselves like thought itself. A place designed so that once you entered, you could never escape. And so the Minotaur was sealed away deep beneath Crete. But it was not enough to lock the monster away. It hungered, and to feed it, Minos demanded tribute from Athens. Every 9 years, 7 boys and 7 girls were chosen and sent into the maze where none ever returned. At this point, we might pause and ask, why tell such a tale? The Minotaur is not just a monster. He is a mirror of something deeper, the part of ourselves we fear most. Our impulses, our violence, our chaos. And a labyrinth is not just stone walls. It is the maze of life itself. Twisting paths, false turns, confusion. We all wander through our own labyrinth, not knowing which direction leads to freedom or if freedom even exists. The Athenians sending their children into the maze can be seen as a symbol of sacrifice to forces we do not control, whether that be fate, society, or even the darker sides of human nature. And so, the myth sets the stage not just for a hero's adventure, but for a meditation on life itself. But into this tragedy, into this endless cycle of sacrifice, steps a young man, Theseus. In Athens, he grew up never knowing his father, yet destined for greatness. Along the road to claim his birthright, he faced bandits, murderers, and monsters, each one a test, each one another step in his becoming. And when the time came for Athens to send yet another group of youths to Crete, Theseus volunteered, not out of duty alone, but because he believed he could end the cycle. He would enter the labyrinth not as a victim, but as a conqueror. Yet even the bravest of heroes cannot escape a maze alone. And it is here that another figure enters our story, one often forgotten in the shadow of Theseus, yet perhaps more important than the hero himself. Her name was Ariadne. Theseus's journey and Amp, Ariadne's gift. Theseus was not born into greatness. Like many of us, he began in uncertainty. His mother, Aethra, raised him in the small city of Treason. His father was a mystery. Some said it was Aegeus, king of Athens. Others whispered it was Poseidon himself. But before he left, his father had hidden a sword and sandals beneath a heavy boulder. When you are strong enough to lift this stone, he said, you will be ready to claim your destiny. And one day, Theseus did. He raised the rock, armed himself with the tokens of his birthright, and set out for Athens. But Theseus did not choose the easy road by sea. He chose the land path, filled with dangers. First came Periphetes, the club-bearer, who struck down travelers. Theseus fought him with his bare hands and claimed the club as his own weapon. Then Cenes the pine-bender, who tied men to trees and tore them apart. Theseus turned his cruelty upon him. And then Procrustes, the innkeeper who forced guests to fit his bed, stretching them if too short, cutting them if too tall. Theseus gave him his own medicine. By the time he reached Athens, Theseus was no longer just a youth. He was a hero forged in trial. Each monster, each villain, was not just an enemy, but a shadow of the human condition. Violence, cruelty, injustice. He did not merely slay them. He corrected them. He restored balance. Philosophers have long seen in Theseus's journey an allegory of moral growth. Each foe is not just a danger on the road, but a danger within us. The violent club, the twisting pine trees, the cruel bed, symbols of human flaws. The temptation to harm, the distortion of nature, the arrogance of forcing others to fit our mold. By defeating them, Theseus is not just clearing a path to Athens. He is preparing himself, ethically, spiritually, for the greater challenge ahead. It is a reminder, before we enter the great labyrinth of life, we must first face the smaller monsters within ourselves. When Theseus arrived in Athens, he revealed himself to King Aegeus, his father. Yet peace was short, for it was the year of tribute. The black-sailed ships of Crete came to Athens, demanding their sacrifice. 7 young men, 7 young women, to be sent into the maze of the Minotaur. The people despaired, but Theseus rose and spoke. I will go. I will face the beast. I will end this cycle once and for all. The Athenians wept. Some praised him as brave, others cursed him as reckless. But Theseus was resolute, and soon he sailed across the sea to Crete. Crete was a world of its own, grand palaces, powerful fleets, a king whose pride was as vast as the sea. Minos ruled with an iron hand, and in his halls lived his daughter, Ariadne. She had grown up in the shadow of the labyrinth. She had seen the youths arrive in tears, seen them vanish into the darkness, never to return. She knew the Minotaur was her half-brother. She knew her father's cruelty, and in her heart, she felt pity for the strangers condemned to die. When Ariadne first saw Theseus, he was not like the others. He stood tall. He did not tremble. His eyes held not fear, but determination. Something stirred within her. Was it love at first sight? Was it admiration for his courage? Or perhaps a recognition that here was someone who might finally end the nightmare that haunted her family? That night, Ariadne sought him out. She whispered, "No one escapes the labyrinth. No one, unless you take this." And from her hands, she gave him a simple object, a ball of thread. "Tied at the entrance," she said. "As you walk, unravel it. And when the beast is dead, follow it back. Only then will you live." Theseus took her gift, and in that moment, a pact was made. Hero and guide, courage and wisdom, blade and thread. The gift of Ariadne's thread may seem simple, but it is perhaps the most powerful symbol in all mythology. The thread is reason, the guiding principle that allows us to move through confusion. The thread is memory, the line we follow back to our beginnings to keep from losing ourselves. The thread is love, an invisible bond that holds us to one another, even in the darkest places. Without the thread, Theseus is just another lost boy in the maze. With it, he becomes a hero. And so, the myth reminds us, courage is not enough. Strength is not enough. We all need a thread, something or someone that guides us back when the world twists into chaos. And so the day came. The tributes were led to the entrance of the labyrinth. The great stone doors groaned as they opened. Darkness yawned before them. Cold air spilled out like the breath of the earth itself. Theseus stepped forward. He tied the thread at the entrance. His hand gripped the ball, unwinding it step by step. And without a word, he vanished into the twisting dark. The doors closed behind him. Darkness, cold stone, silence, broken only by the faint drip of water and the sound of his own breath. Theseus was alone. The labyrinth was alive around him, twisting, pressing, waiting. Every passage looked the same. Walls rose high, slick with damp. Paths wound back upon themselves. Dead ends appeared without warning. Step by step, he moved forward. With one hand, he gripped his sword. With the other, the thread. Always the thread, unwinding behind him, line by line, a fragile tether to the world outside. The deeper he went, the heavier the air became. His torch flickered. Shadows leapt along the walls, stretching into monstrous shapes. At times, he thought he heard whispers, his own name echoing back to him, carried on invisible currents. Other times, the silence was so complete it roared in his ears. And then came the smell, a stench, sour and animal. Sweat, rot, blood, the scent of the beast. He turned a corner, and there it was. The Minotaur, its body towering, muscular, scarred. The chest and arms of a man, the head of a bull. Curved horns glistened in the torchlight. Its eyes burned red. It bellowed, a sound that shook the walls. Theseus stood firm. He raised his sword. He had not come this far to falter. With a snarl, the beast charged. The first strike nearly crushed him. The Minotaur's horns slammed into the wall, stone shattering. Theseus rolled aside, slashing at its flank. The blade bit flesh, but the beast barely flinched. It swung a massive arm. The blow sent Theseus sprawling. His torch flew from his hand, sputtering out in the darkness. Now there was only blackness and the beast's breath, hot and ragged in the dark. Theseus rose. He steadied himself. He listened. A scrape of hoof on stone. A rush of air. The charge came again. This time, he dove low, plunging his sword upward. The blade struck true into the beast's side. The Minotaur roared in pain, thrashing, blood spilling onto the floor. The fight raged on. Again and again the Minotaur charged, and again Theseus met it, dodging, striking, enduring. His arms ached. His chest burned. His strength wavered. But still he fought. At last, with a final cry, Theseus drove his blade deep into the monster's throat. The Minotaur staggered. Its roar faded into a gurgle. It collapsed, shaking the earth beneath it. And then silence. Theseus stood over the fallen beast. For generations, Athens had lived in terror of this monster. And now it was done. But even in victory, the hero felt no triumph. Only exhaustion. The Minotaur was dead, but the maze was not. And without Ariadne's thread, he too would have been lost. What is the Minotaur? On the surface, a monster. But myths are never only what they appear. The Minotaur is the beast within each of us, the part that is violent, uncontrollable, born of desire and shame. The side we try to bury deep, to hide in the labyrinth of the unconscious. But what happens when we deny it? It festers, it hungers, and eventually it consumes us. Theseus's battle is not just against flesh and horn. It is against himself, against the chaos every human carries. And the thread? That is the guide that keeps us from being lost when facing our darkness. Reason, memory, love. Without it, even the bravest hero becomes just another victim wandering in circles. The myth whispers to us, you must face your Minotaur, but you must not face it blind. Carry your thread. Theseus wiped the blood from his blade. He found the thread in the dark, still stretched behind him. Slowly, hand over hand, he followed it back. Each turn of the maze that had once threatened to swallow him now opened before him, guided by the fragile line. And at last he saw light. The stone doors loomed ahead. He stepped out into the night air, breathing freely for the first time in hours. Behind him lay the broken body of the Minotaur, deep in the maze. Before him, freedom. And waiting in the shadows, her eyes wide with hope, was Ariadne. Theseus emerged from the labyrinth alive. The Minotaur was dead. For the first time in generations, Athens would no longer bow to Crete's cruel demand. But he did not emerge alone. Waiting for him in the shadows was Ariadne, the princess who had given him the thread, the one who had risked everything to save him. Her eyes met his, filled with relief, with admiration, with love. And Theseus, weary but victorious, knew he owed her his life. Together they ran through the silent palace, past guards asleep, past doors that had long hidden the island's secrets. They found the ship where the Athenian youths waited. For the first time, hope spread among them. As dawn broke, the black-sailed vessel slipped from the harbor. The wind filled its sails, carrying them away from Crete, away from Minos, away from the shadow of the Labyrinth. On the deck, Ariadne stood beside Theseus. She had betrayed her father, abandoned her homeland, and cast her lot with this hero. But in her heart, she believed it was worth it. She had chosen love over fear, freedom over obedience. The sea was wide before them, their future uncertain but alive. For a time, Ariadne was radiant. She had broken free of her father's cruelty. She had saved Theseus, and in return, she believed she would be loved, cherished, remembered. On the deck of that ship, she dreamed of a new life in Athens, of becoming queen, of standing beside the man she had saved. She had given him the thread, and in her mind it bound them forever. But the gods, it seems, had other plans. After days at sea, the ship anchored at a small island, Naxos. The weary travelers came ashore, grateful for solid ground, for rest, for the safety of the earth beneath their feet. That night, Ariadne slept, exhausted, her dreams filled with visions of Athens, of weddings, of joy. But when she awoke, she was alone. Theseus was gone. The ship was gone. She stood on the shore, waves curling at her feet, the horizon empty. Abandoned, betrayed, forgotten. What happened that night on Naxos? The storytellers disagree. Some say Theseus abandoned her deliberately, that once free of danger, he cast aside the woman who had saved him, just as men often discard the wisdom or love that guides them. Others say the gods intervened. Dionysus, god of wine and ecstasy, claimed Ariadne as his bride, lifting her into a divine fate far greater than Theseus could offer. But whichever version you choose, the tragedy remains. Ariadne gave everything, and Theseus left her behind. And here the myth turns from triumph to sorrow. The hero who slew the beast becomes the man who betrays the one who gave him victory. It is a warning written into the bones of the story. Strength may win battles, but it is often love, wisdom, and trust that are discarded when no longer convenient. Think of the thread again. To Ariadne, it was more than a tool. It was a bond. The fragile line that connected her fate to Theseus's. But once he escaped, once he no longer needed it, the thread was severed. In this way, the myth is not just about survival. It is about how easily humans forget the ones who helped them. How quickly gratitude fades once freedom is won. And perhaps it asks us, how many Ariadnes have we left behind in our own lives? How many times have we cut the thread that led us out of darkness because we believed we no longer needed it? Yet Ariadne's story does not end in despair. On Naxos, abandoned, she wept. But then came Dionysus, wild and radiant, crowned in ivy, surrounded by revelers. He found her. He lifted her. Some say he made her immortal. Some say he placed her crown among the stars as the constellation Corona Borealis. And so the abandoned princess became divine, not through Theseus, but through the gods. It is a reminder, betrayal may wound, but it does not define. Threads may break, but new ones can be woven. Out of loss, new meaning can emerge. As for Theseus, he sailed on, victorious, empty-handed, and soon his journey would carry him back to Athens. But the story was not done. For even heroes, even kings, carry shadows. And Theseus's greatest tragedy was still to come. The black-sailed ship pressed onward, leaving Naxos behind. Ariadne was gone. Theseus stood at the prow, staring toward the horizon, toward Athens. The Minotaur was slain. The Labyrinth conquered. He had achieved what no man before him had done. And yet, something weighed upon him. Victory had not brought the joy he expected. The sea seemed endless, the stars cold, the wind heavy with silence. The thread that had guided him in the dark was gone. And perhaps, though he would not admit it, he already felt the cost of abandoning Ariadne. Before he had departed for Crete, Theseus had made a promise to his father, King Aegeus. "If I return victorious," he said, "I will raise white sails on my ship. But if I fail, if I fall in the labyrinth, if I do not return, then the sails will remain black." Aegeus had clung to that promise. Day after day, he watched the sea from the cliffs above Athens, his eyes searching for a sign. But in his weariness, in his grief, in the weight of triumph mixed with betrayal, Theseus forgot. He forgot to change the sails. One morning, the watchman on the cliffs cried out. A ship appeared on the horizon, drawing near. King Aegeus rushed to the edge of the cliffs, his heart pounding. His eyes sought the sails. And there, black like morning, black like death. The king staggered. His son was gone, he thought. Athens had lost its heir. Grief overcame him. And in that moment, Aegeus cast himself into the sea below. The waters swallowed him. And from that day forward, the sea that claimed him would forever bear his name, the Aegean Sea. The ship docked. The youth stepped ashore alive, free. The people of Athens rejoiced. But amid the celebrations, word came. The king was dead. Theseus had returned victorious, but his victory had cost him his father. The people wept, and Theseus, in that moment, learned the cruel truth of the hero's path. Every triumph carries a shadow. Every victory exacts a price. What do we make of this moment? Some say it was fate, that no man, however great, escapes the tragic hand of destiny. Others say it was Theseus's carelessness, his human flaw, that undid him. But perhaps the black sail is more than an accident. Perhaps it is a symbol. Theseus had slain the beast outside, but had not yet mastered the beast within. In forgetting Ariadne, in forgetting his promise, he revealed the weakness of pride and the blindness of victory. The black sail is the shadow that follows every hero, the reminder that even our greatest deeds are never pure, never free of error, never without cost. And the sea that took Aegeus reminds us, the consequences of our forgetfulness ripple outward. One careless act can drown a kingdom in grief. The myth asks us, where do our true labyrinths lie? For Theseus, the maze beneath Crete was only the beginning. The greater labyrinth was life itself. The Minotaur was slain, but the dangers of pride, of betrayal, of forgetfulness remained. And perhaps this is why the story has endured for millennia. Because we too live in labyrinths, not of stone, but of choices, of responsibilities, of mistakes. And like Theseus, we sometimes forget the sails we promised to raise. We forget the threads that guide us. And in forgetting, we cause grief we never intended. The myth warns us. Courage may slay monsters, but wisdom must steer the ship home. Theseus was hailed as a hero, crowned as king. But his story did not end in triumph. For the same flaws that cost him Ariadne, that cost him his father, would follow him into his reign. And in the end, the legacy of Theseus would be one not only of heroism, but of tragedy. The labyrinth was behind him, but his greatest challenges, those of the soul, of memory, of meaning, were yet to be faced. Theseus was now king. He had slain the Minotaur, escaped the labyrinth, freed his city from terror. And yet, as the years passed, his story darkened. The people who once praised him began to question his rule. His pride grew. His choices became heavy with consequence. The same man who had conquered monsters found himself ensnared by ambition, by arrogance, by the endless puzzles of power. And so, the story of Theseus reminds us, the labyrinth never truly ends. We leave one maze only to enter another. Think back, the thread, the gift of Ariadne, the bond of love and wisdom that guided him out, that he left her behind. And from that forgetting came the death of his father. From that forgetting came the weight of kingship he was not ready to bear. The myth whispers to us, to forget our thread is to be lost, not only in mazes of stone, but in the labyrinth of life itself. So what is the labyrinth? To the ancients, it was a marvel of architecture, a prison for a monster. To us, it is something more. It is life. Every turn is a choice. Every dead end, a mistake. Every winding passage, a a struggle we must face. And the Minotaur? That is death, the beast at the center of every human life, waiting for us at the end of the maze. We cannot avoid it. We cannot run forever, but we can face it. And the thread? That is meaning. That is love. That is reason. That is whatever we choose to hold on to, that guides us back when the world becomes too dark to navigate. Without it, we are lost. With it, we may find our way, even through the deepest confusion. Thinkers across the centuries have returned to this story. For the Stoics, Ariadne's thread was logos, the rational order of the universe, the guiding principle that gives coherence to chaos. For Jung, it was the thread of consciousness that guides us through the labyrinth of the unconscious, leading us to confront the beast within. For modern readers, it is the search for meaning itself, the fragile lines of story, of love, of memory, that keep us human in a world that often feels overwhelming. It is no wonder that artists and philosophers, from Dante to Nietzsche to Borges, have returned again and again to the labyrinth. Because the story does not belong to Theseus alone. It belongs to us. The myth does not end with certainty. It ends with questions. What thread do you hold on to in your own life? Is it love? Is it reason? Is it faith? Is it art? What minotaur do you face in the dark? Fear? Addiction? Regret? Mortality itself? And when you forget, when you cut the thread, when you abandon your Ariadne, what grief follows? These are not ancient questions. They are timeless. They are ours. We are all wanderers in the maze. We are all seekers of threads. We are all, in the end, face to face with the Minotaur. But perhaps the lesson of the myth is not simply how to escape. Perhaps it is how to live inside the labyrinth, courageously, thoughtfully, without forgetting the threads that bind us to one another. And if we hold on tightly enough, maybe, just maybe, we can find our way back into the light. Thanks for spending this time with me. Don't forget to subscribe and go check my Peaceful Documentaries playlist for more. See you next time on my way.